Welcome to the ABCs of Black History, where we go down the alphabet and highlight the legends they do not teach in school. A is for Annie Turnbow Malone. Before Madam C.J. Walker, she was laying the foundation. Born in 1869 to formerly enslaved parents, Annie Turnbow Malone became a chemist and entrepreneur who developed and sold her own line of hair care products for Black women, at a time when beauty companies did not care about our people. She founded Poro College in 1918, a school that trained thousands of Black women in business, self-care, and financial independence. She gave them tools to build careers when doors were shut everywhere else. At her peak, she was worth over $14 million in the early 1900s. And instead of hoarding her wealth, she gave back, donating to historically Black colleges and universities, the St. Louis Colored Orphans Home, and dozens of causes. Annie Turnbow Malone was not just a businesswoman. She was a movement. That was A. Stay tuned for the rest of the alphabet as we unlock Black brilliance from A to Z. Do not forget to like, share, and follow if you are tired of watered-down history. Let us change the narrative.
B is for Bessie Stringfield, the motorcycle queen of Miami. Born in 1911, Bessie didn't let racism or sexism stop her from chasing freedom on two wheels. At just 19 years old, she taught herself to ride a motorcycle, then rode solo across the United States 8 times during the Jim Crow era. Hotels wouldn't let her stay. Gas stations would deny her service. But she kept riding, sometimes sleeping on her bike when she had to. During World War II, Bessie served as a civilian courier for the United States Army, delivering messages coast to coast. She'd ride thousands of miles alone through dangerous towns where being Black and female could have cost her life. But she made history instead. The American Motorcyclist Association even created an award in her name, honoring women who break barriers just like she did. That was B for Bessie. Tap in next time as we cruise through Black brilliance one letter at a time. Like, share, and follow to rewrite the narrative with us.
Welcome back to the ABCs of Black History, where each letter unlocks a legacy they never taught us. C is for Charles Drew. The reason we have blood banks today. Born in 1904, Charles Drew was a brilliant Black surgeon and medical researcher who developed new ways to store and preserve blood plasma, a breakthrough that saved thousands of lives in World War II. He organized the first large-scale blood banks for the Red Cross. But when they started segregating blood by race, with no scientific reason, Drew resigned in protest. He said, "There is no scientific basis for the separation of the bloods of different races." Even with all he contributed, the United States still tried to erase his name from the medical legacy. But his work changed medicine forever and continues to save lives to this day. Charles Drew didn't just donate blood, he gave humanity to science. That was C for Charles. Keep tapping in as we go down the alphabet and rewrite the narrative. Like, follow and share if you're here to make history louder.
You're watching the ABCs of Black History, where every letter reveals a story they left out the textbooks. D is for Dory Miller, the Navy cook who became a war hero. Born in 1919 in Waco, Texas, Doris Dory Miller joined the United States Navy. But like most Black men at the time, the only job he was allowed to do was serve food or clean. But that changed on December 7, 1941, during the attack on Pearl Harbor. As bombs dropped and bullets flew, Dory didn't run. He carried wounded soldiers to safety, then jumped behind an anti-aircraft gun, a weapon he'd never been trained to use, and shot down enemy planes until he ran out of ammo. For that, he became the first Black American awarded the Navy Cross, one of the military's highest honors. But he still returned to service as a cook. Because racism doesn't care if you're a hero. Dory Miller gave this country everything. It's time we remember his name. That was D for Dory. Hit that follow button and keep riding with us through the ABCs of Black History. One letter at a time, we reclaim our legacy.
Welcome back to the ABCs of Black History. One letter at a time, one untold story at a time. E is for Ella Baker, the mother of the movement, who stayed behind the scenes so the people could rise. Born in 1903 in Norfolk, Virginia, Ella Baker spent over 50 years organizing, strategizing, and building the foundations of the civil rights movement. While names like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X became famous, Ella was the one in the back rooms, in the community centers, in the churches, doing the work. She co-founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference with Dr. King, then later helped launch the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which trained the next generation of freedom fighters. But Ella didn't believe in just one voice leading the way. She believed in the power of many. She said, "Strong people don't need strong leaders." Ella Baker was the blueprint. The movement moved because she moved the people. That was E for Ella. Share this if you believe true power starts with the people. And stick around. We're only just getting started with the ABCs of Black history.
You're watching the ABCs of Black history, where every letter brings a legend to light. F is for Frederick Douglass, the man who taught himself to read, and then taught the world to listen. Born into slavery in 1818, Douglass risked his life to escape at age 20. But he didn't run and hide. He picked up a pen and fought back with truth. He became one of the most powerful abolitionist speakers of the 1800s, confronting presidents, challenging the church, and exposing the brutal reality of slavery with his words. His autobiography, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, shocked the nation. People didn't believe a former slave could write that well. That's how deep their racism went. But Douglass didn't stop there. He fought for black freedom, women's rights, and justice for all people, until the day he died. He once said, "If there is no struggle, there is no progress." Frederick Douglass wasn't just free. He made freedom louder. That was F for Frederick. Keep riding with us as we unlock the power of Black history from A to Z. Like, follow, and share if you're done with watered-down history.
Welcome back to the ABCs of Black history, where each letter feeds the truth they left out of class. G is for Georgia Gilmore, the woman who turned fried chicken and pound cake into civil rights weapons. When the Montgomery bus boycott started in 1955, most folks know about Rosa Parks, but few know it was Georgia Gilmore's cooking that kept the movement going. She organized a secret group of women called the Club from Nowhere. They cooked and sold meals in their neighborhoods, and used the money to pay for gas, car repairs, and supplies so people could keep walking instead of riding the buses. She fed Dr. King and hosted strategy meetings right from her kitchen, even after she was fired from her job for testifying in court on behalf of the boycott. But she didn't stop. She said, "You can help the cause without being on the front page." Georgia Gilmore proved the revolution starts where the people eat. That was G for Georgia. Tag someone whose grandma could fund a movement with their cooking, and follow for more untold Black brilliance A to Z.
This is the ABCs of Black history, where every letter breaks down the brilliance they tried to hide. H is for Huey P. Newton, the mind behind the movement. Born in Louisiana in 1942 and raised in Oakland, California, Huey co-founded the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense in 1966, alongside Bobby Seale. Their mission? To protect black people from police brutality and uplift the community through real action. Under Huey's leadership, the Panthers started free breakfast programs for kids, health clinics, education initiatives, and legal aid, long before the government stepped in. But the media painted them as violent, because black self-defense scared America more than black death. Huey was constantly targeted, arrested, and vilified, but he once said, "The first lesson a revolutionary must learn is that he is a doomed man." Even through the chaos, he gave black youth pride, purpose, and power. Huey P. Newton didn't just fight the system, he built one of his own. That was H for Huey. Like, follow and share if you believe protecting your people isn't a crime, it's a duty.
Welcome back to the ABCs of Black history, where we uncover the legends they tried to silence, one letter at a time. I is for Ida B. Wells, the woman who turned truth into a weapon. Born into slavery in 1862, Ida B. Wells became a journalist, educator, and one of the most fearless anti-lynching activists in American history. In the late 1800s, she saw her friends lynched for no reason other than being black and successful. While others stayed quiet out of fear, Ida picked up her pen and called it out for what it was: terrorism. She traveled the country investigating lynchings, publishing the truth in newspapers, and naming names. They burned down her press. She kept writing. They threatened her life. She kept speaking. She was also a co-founder of the NAACP, fought for women's voting rights, and made sure Black voices were never left out of the conversation. Ida B. Wells didn't ask for justice. She demanded it, in ink and in fire. That was I for Ida. If you believe the pen is still a powerful tool, follow, and keep writing with us through the ABCs of Black history.
Welcome back to the ABCs of Black history. One letter, one legacy at a time. J is for John Lewis, the man who got into good trouble and never stopped fighting for what was right. Born in 1940 to sharecroppers in Alabama, John Lewis was just a teenager when he heard Dr. King speak on the radio. That voice sparked something, and Lewis never looked back. By 23, he was one of the original Freedom Riders, risking his life to desegregate buses across the South. He was arrested over 40 times fighting for civil rights, and he never wavered. But the world will never forget March 7, 1965. Bloody Sunday. Lewis led a peaceful march across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, and was nearly beaten to death by police. The image of his fractured skull helped push Congress to pass the Voting Rights Act. He later served over 30 years in Congress, and still kept marching, still kept organizing, still kept saying, "Never be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble." John Lewis didn't just walk the bridge, he built it with his courage. That was J for John. Follow and share if you believe good trouble still matters. The ABCs of Black history is just getting started.
K is for Katherine Johnson, the human computer who helped put a man on the moon. Long before computers had screens and keyboards, NASA relied on brilliant minds to do the math. And Katherine Johnson was one of the best. As a Black woman working in a segregated space program during the 1950s and 60s, she broke both racial and gender barriers with nothing but sharp intelligence and unstoppable determination. It was her calculations that guided the Apollo 11 mission, ensuring astronauts could land on the moon and return safely. Even John Glenn, one of the first Americans in space, refused to fly until Katherine herself checked the numbers by hand. Despite her brilliance, she was rarely given credit during her lifetime. But today, her legacy lives on in every young Black girl who dares to dream big in STEM. She didn't just make history, she calculated it.
They want us to believe our history starts with chains. But it started with brilliance. Let me show you. L is for Lewis Latimer, the genius behind the light bulb's glow. We all know the name Thomas Edison, but without Lewis Latimer, that invention may never have reached the world. Born in 1848 to parents who had escaped slavery, Latimer became a self-taught engineer and draftsman. He worked alongside Alexander Graham Bell on the telephone, and later joined Edison's team. But his most important contribution was creating a longer-lasting carbon filament for the light bulb. His invention made electric lighting affordable and practical for homes, meaning we literally would not have light like we do today without him. He also held several patents, fought for civil rights, and used his mind to illuminate a path forward for Black excellence. He did not just change history, he lit the way. And that is just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission. Grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive. Welcome to a special episode of Black American History. Though he was not an American, he is someone that we all aspire to be. M is for Mansa Musa, the richest man to ever live. Before there were billionaires in suits, there was a Black king in gold. Mansa Musa, ruler of the Mali Empire in the 1300s, was so wealthy that his spending literally changed the economy of entire countries. He ruled over one of the largest and most powerful empires in West Africa, rich in gold, culture, and education. When he made his pilgrimage to Mecca, his caravan stretched for miles, 60,000 people, hundreds of camels, and so much gold that he caused inflation in Cairo. But his legacy is not just about riches. Musa built schools, libraries, and mosques, making Timbuktu a global center of knowledge. He did not just have wealth, he invested it in the future of his people. And that is just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission. Grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive. They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. N is for Nat Turner, the man who turned rebellion into a message. In the year 1831, Nat Turner, an enslaved preacher, led one of the most well-known slave rebellions in American history. Inspired by visions and faith, he believed he was chosen to lead his people to freedom, and he took action. With a small group of followers, Turner moved from plantation to plantation, freeing enslaved people and striking fear into the heart of a system built on oppression. Though the rebellion was eventually stopped, his legacy lived on, as a symbol of resistance, courage, and the power of belief in something bigger than fear. He did not ask for freedom, he fought for it. And that's just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission, grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive.
They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. O is for Ona Judge, the woman who escaped George Washington and never went back. Ona Judge was born into slavery at Mount Vernon and served as a personal maid to Martha Washington. But when she found out the Washingtons planned to give her away as a wedding gift, she made a decision that changed everything. At just 22 years old, Ona escaped from the president's household and fled north. Washington used his power and position to try to recapture her, even sending agents to hunt her down. But she refused to return to bondage. She lived the rest of her life in freedom, always under the threat of being dragged back but never broken. She didn't wait for freedom to come, she took it. And that's just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission. Grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive.
They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. P is for Paul Robeson, the voice so powerful the government tried to silence him. Paul Robeson wasn't just one thing, he was everything. A scholar, athlete, singer, actor, and activist, Robeson used every gift he had to uplift his people. He was a college football star, a Columbia Law graduate, and one of the most acclaimed performers of his time, known for his booming voice in roles like Othello and Showboat. But he didn't stop at fame. He spoke out boldly against racism, colonialism, and injustice across the globe. For that, the US government labeled him a threat. They took his passport, blacklisted his name, and tried to erase his legacy. But you can't mute a man who speaks with truth and sings with purpose. And that's just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission. Grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive. They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. Q is for Queen Nzinga, the warrior queen who fought back against colonizers. Though she was not American, her story belongs in our history, because the fight for black freedom did not start here. Queen Nzinga ruled in 17th century Angola and led her people in resistance against the Portuguese slave trade. When European powers came to take land and enslave her people, Nzinga used strategy, diplomacy, and when necessary, straight-up war. She once walked into a meeting with the Portuguese, saw they had no chair for her, and ordered a servant to become her human throne, showing she would not kneel to anyone. For over 30 years, she led rebellions, protected her people, and proved that black women have always been powerful. She did not just wear a crown, she earned it in battle. And that is just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission. Grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive. They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. R is for Ruby Bridges, the little girl who walked through hate with her head held high. In 1960, at just 6 years old, Ruby Bridges became the first black child to integrate an all-white elementary school in the South. She was met with mobs of screaming adults, threats, and isolation, just for trying to go to school. But every day, with United States Marshals by her side, Ruby walked into that building with courage far beyond her years. She spent that entire school year learning alone in a classroom, because white parents pulled their kids out, and most teachers refused to teach her. Still, she showed up, every day. Not just for herself, but for every black child who deserved equal education. She didn't just make history, she was braver than the grown-ups around her. And that's just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission. Grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive.
They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. S is for Sojourner Truth, the woman who spoke truth to power and made them listen. Born into slavery in New York in 1797, Sojourner Truth escaped with her infant daughter and became one of the most powerful abolitionists and women's rights activists in American history. She could not read or write, but she spoke with a fire that could not be ignored. Her most famous speech, "Ain't I a Woman?" delivered in 1851, shattered both racist and sexist ideas in one unforgettable moment. She spent her life traveling, organizing, and fighting for the freedom of Black people, for the dignity of women, and for justice wherever it was denied. She did not just tell the truth, she was the truth. And that is just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission, grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive. They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. T is for Thurgood Marshall, the man who took Jim Crow to court and won. Before he became the first Black Supreme Court justice, Thurgood Marshall was a lawyer who fought against segregation with a legal mind so sharp, even the system couldn't ignore him. He argued, and won, the landmark Brown versus Board of Education case in 1954, which struck down racial segregation in public schools. That case didn't just change education. It shook the foundation of the whole Jim Crow era. He used the law like a sword, defending the rights of Black people in a system that was never built for us. And then went on to sit at the highest court in the land, where he continued that fight. He didn't just open doors. He broke down walls. And that's just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission, grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive.
They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. U is for Ursula Burns, the first Black woman to lead a Fortune 500 company. Born and raised in the projects of New York City, Ursula Burns defied every statistic they tried to place on her. She studied engineering, joined Xerox as an intern, and climbed her way to the top, not just of the company, but of the entire corporate world. In 2009, she became Chief Executive Officer of Xerox, making history as the first Black woman to ever lead a Fortune 500 company, and the first woman to succeed another woman in that role. She broke through corporate ceilings that were never meant for her, and then reached back to bring others up behind her. She didn't just take a seat at the table, she built her own. And that's just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission, grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive.
They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. V is for Venus Williams, the champion who changed the game, then changed the rules. Before the world knew Serena, there was Venus, the trailblazing big sister with the powerful serve and unstoppable mindset. She didn't just dominate the court with 7 Grand Slam titles, she fought for equal pay in tennis, and won. Thanks to her advocacy, Wimbledon finally paid women the same as men in 2007. Venus carried herself with grace, strength, and intelligence in a sport that wasn't built for her, and paved the way for the next generation to not just play, but to own the moment. She wasn't just playing tennis, she was serving justice. And that's just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission. Grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive.
They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. W is for Walter Payton, the National Football League legend whose greatness ran deeper than football. Nicknamed Sweetness, Walter Payton was more than just a running back. He was a force of nature. He rushed for over 16,000 yards, scored 125 touchdowns, and became one of the greatest players in National Football League history. But Payton's legacy goes beyond the stats. He was known for his work ethic, character, and compassion both on and off the field. The National Football League Man of the Year award now bears his name. Given to players who show excellence in community service and leadership, greatness isn't just about what you do, it's how you uplift others while doing it. And that's just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission, grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive. They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. X is for Malcolm X, the man who taught us to speak boldly, walk proudly, and never beg for respect. Born Malcolm Little, he became Malcolm X, a revolutionary voice who shook America awake. With fiery speeches and fearless truth-telling, he challenged racism, uplifted Black pride, and spoke power to power. He did not just talk about freedom, he demanded it. Not tomorrow, now. Though often painted as radical, Malcolm X was a man of evolution, strength, and deep love for his people. His legacy still echoes through every movement that refuses to bow down. He did not change to fit the system. He changed the way we see ourselves. And that is just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission. Grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive.
They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. Y is for York, the unsung black explorer who helped map the American frontier. While history books praise Lewis and Clark, few mention York, the only black member of the famous expedition. He was not just a servant, he was a hunter, scout, and translator, and helped the team survive. Native tribes respected him, often seeing him as a symbol of strength and curiosity. And though York played a major role in shaping the country's future, he was denied freedom for years after the journey. He walked every step with the team, but history tried to leave him behind. Not anymore. And that is just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission. Grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive.
They want us to believe our history starts with chains, but it started with brilliance. Let me show you. Z is for Zora Neale Hurston, the writer who captured the soul of Black life with every word. Author, anthropologist, and folklorist, Zora Neale Hurston was a voice ahead of her time. Her most famous novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, still resonates today, rich with culture, strength, and Southern Black womanhood. Zora did not write for the white gaze. She wrote for us, about us, in a voice that rang true. She traveled through the South collecting stories, preserving folklore, and honoring the beauty in Black life, not just the pain. She told our stories, and made sure we never got erased. And that is just one piece of the story. If you want to help rewrite the narrative, support the mission. Grab the book, wear the message, and keep the history alive.